videos out, and I just thought it might be a little easier for me to do something a little bit less stressful. So I thought that instead of anything really planned, I would go ahead and talk about my favorite book collection. My favorite book collection is Harry Potter. I wanted to do a video. I didn't want anything that was too complicated. I'm having a little bit of a hard time kind of formulating time in my life to make videos. That like are elaborate and can still be filmed as ASMR because it is very difficult to film ASMR. I have to say, when you are trying to kind of live life, you either have to stay up really late or you have to wait till your home is entirely empty. Even then, you get to hear the wonderful things outside that are always going on. Okay, so I was having a little trouble getting through making a video, so I'm gonna go ahead and make a video on my favorite book collection. It's a little bit more informal, and I feel like it is just gonna be me kind of like having fun and practicing some of the skills that I'm trying to get better at in ASMR and whispering. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you some of my favorite books, my Harry Potter collection. I think my Harry Potter collection is a little bit different in the sense that I really, really never wanted to replace mine with anything that was kind of like cleaner or better, design, whatever. For me, this collection in particular is not about aesthetics, because a lot of these were books that were either gifted to me or when I started reading, it was very, very favorite book that I remember loving first, and I'll tell you right now a big part of that if I can find. Hold on, let's see. The Death Day Party. Poor little Mrs. Norris. Um, this was not in the movie The Death Day Party, and the remaking, I actually really hope that they include a lot of the scenes that I loved that I didn't think got representation in the movies at all. A lot of the ghosts got overlooked. I feel like in the movies they weren't as big a part of the movies as the books were. And so the Death Day Party is actually a Death Day Party where one of the ghosts nearly at this neck celebrates the day of his death and has this big party and invites Harry and his friends. And I loved it. I thought it was so interesting and creative. And what I loved the most is the food that was present at the Death Day Party. I remember it being like rotted food, so that when they like passed through it, they could actually kind of like not feel, I guess, maybe taste the flavors coming off of it because they were like so strong and molded. That's gross, but yeah, this was my favorite for the longest time. But eventually it got bumped off the list. But for a while it was my favorite. Okay, I'm gonna kind of switch these two. Let's see. Okay, so it's number 3. Again, abused. If we look, the dust jacket, I abused the actual book less, but you can see it's been put in a backpack or a bag quite often. The edges are all beat up. I liked the third book, but I have to say, Sirius bothered me from the beginning. I don't know what it was with him. To this day, I always remember liking Severus Snape. Like always. And Sirius, I don't know, he was supposed to be this like great character, this connection to Harry's past, but he always just irritated me. I don't know why. But yeah, this one, I loved it. My favorite things that I remember about reading was Crookshanks. I loved Crookshanks. I thought Crookshanks was actually like a witch or something, honestly, for the longest time. And then, I think my favorite, my favorite thing was, if I can find it. See, it's easier to go through all the swords. This poor thing is falling apart. See, I don't I was like, if I can't live in the wizarding world, please let me at least ride on the night bus at least once. That sounded like so much fun. And obviously not a thing, but it was always something that I was really hoping would happen. But, you know, there it goes. Oh. The night bus. It always just sounded so cool. And the movie did a really good job with the night bus. I loved it. Okay. So then we have book 4, which I will put back in a minute. Let's see. Okay, book 4, The Goblet of Fire. This is the first one that I think I had to wait for it. I think I could actually, like the other ones, I told you I was about 30 when I started reading, and my age is kind of aligned with Harry, so I could kind of breeze through the first 3, and then I had to wait for The Goblet of Fire. It's by far the biggest book that I ever read. This one is falling apart too, obviously, but I don't normally make it to this one in the rereadings. I think, like, as you can tell, if I did, it would look a lot more like the other books. I tend to kind of let go once I hit this one. I do remember this taking me a while to get through, so I think that's why it's still kind of abused. Did I take the cover off with this one? Yeah, it looks like it did. This was the first book too, where like I was really intrigued by the cover. In the other ones you could kind of guess like who the people were on the cover, because you had like redheads or like Hermione. In this one, I remember kind of getting it and being like, oh my gosh, who are these people? I'm so excited. I had no idea what that was. So I was trying to guess. This was the first book that ever made me cry. Like, really cried. I remember getting it as a gift. One of my grandparents came home, and she had bought it for me as like a surprise. And, because she worked at a retail store, and she had got it like the day it came in. So, anyways, I remember I just locked myself away, and I sat down and I read as much as I could. I did not finish it in a day. I wasn't that kid, but remember, before this I sucked at reading. So, this was the book. These were the books that grew my reading obsession. I remember getting to Cedric's death, and I bawled my eyes out. I was an absolute mess. So this was the first book that ever made me cry. I did like it. The Yule Ball was so dramatic, which was not normal for this. So I did like that it felt like she was growing our characters. And I remember when I first got into this, looking her up and reading somewhere that these books were kind of based on like a typical genre, like a school genre. Like the kid goes to school, events happen, and then they come back, and that's like the genre. I don't know what it's called. It's probably something like really obvious, like school dramas. But this one I feel like she branched out a lot and kind of explored different like worlds, different areas, and to know that there were like other schools and like other magic and other like still was taking it out of the book, the dust cover. But I was more careful with it. You have to keep in mind, I was aging with him now, right? So like every time a book came out, I was usually like a year older. And they would come out every summer, like on his birthday, so you kind of tell. As I got older, I became more responsible with my books and a faster reader. Order of the Phoenix. Overall, I thought it was fantastic. Again, maybe I'm messed up. I liked Umbridge. I like good villains, and I thought she was a good villain. She drove me absolutely crazy. And I thought that that was like the mark of a good villain. I don't know, a lot of people to this day, like, she's the one villain that they're like, I cannot stand, I hate her. And I thought that she was so necessary. Dolores Umbridge in the story was just, I don't know, a necessary evil. And I feel like she really, really made us, like, miss Dumbledore. And this is one of the books. This is one of the books that I kind of got frustrated with Dumbledore. I started to get frustrated with Dumbledore. He just kind of seemed like he didn't care. Like he had his own agenda. And I don't know what that says about me, but I was already feeling really betrayed by him. I was starting to feel like, I don't know, he didn't care. Or he didn't, like he didn't see the importance of the kids. So when they made like Dumbledore's army and everything, I don't know, I think the kids felt like they were honoring him, like they were kind of doing something that he would approve of. And I mean, I think in the end it was kind of given that he did, but I felt like he stopped, I don't know, stopped caring. So I was getting really frustrated with Dumbledore by this point. I kind of established already, I really wasn't a big Sirius fan. If anything, he was kind of starting to irritate me in this one. We find out that he and James were like bullies of Snape, so that kind of brought me even further onto Snape's side. But then also, he put a lot of pressure on Harry, and I agreed a lot with like Mrs. Weasley when she kind of put like an argument to the table that like, you just want your friend back, you don't actually want Harry, you want James, and he's not a replacement for James. And I felt like that was so valid, and it was really messed up that like Harry began to feel like he could be that replacement. This just kind of made me, what I loved about this is he hit an age where I think we start analyzing adult decisions, like of those that are around us, whether or not we know what we're doing with those kind of those situations. We do start kind of questioning the adults around us, and I thought this was a really good book that kind of explored that with Harry, especially as someone who had very little guidance, had a lot of trauma, had a lot of kind of like a lack of love for long amounts of time. Obviously not when he was in Hogwarts, but and so I think a lot of his reactions to Sirius were very valid. But what frustrated me was Sirius's reactions to Harry. Like, that frustrated me. I even at like, I think I was 15 at this point. Even at 15, I was like, dude, you need to not put so much pressure on this kid. But yeah, 15. Okay. Some of these around. I was really frustrated. I was angry. I remember closing this book at the end of reading it and just coming out of my room and having to explain to somebody how I definitely thought that there was some kind of mistake. There had to be something that Rowling was planning that involved Snape still being on Dumbledore's side. It drove me mad. Absolutely insane. And as stated, I had to wait a year. I think I might have had to wait 2 years. I think she made us wait 2 years for the next one. I'm trying to remember the best that I can. But I think this one took her 2 years to write. It was just cruel. It was just so cruel. I really was on Snape's side. I was about ready to scream at the end of this book. And then when Dumbledore didn't Houdini out of the grave. Literary trauma, man. I was so done. But I still held hope. I held hope. Alright, final book. Now that I'm talking about it, it may be completely out of my head, but I'm very sure that she made us wait 2 years. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I do know that this was the only book out of all of them that I got to go to a Barnes & Noble's release event. I don't know that they have anything like that anymore. I really think it was kind of a phenomenon for this series in general, where there was so many pre-orders, there were so many people looking forward to Harry Potter releases that Barnes & Noble's would like these parties at night, and it would be the release where you would go, and there were like dress up contests. There was like a Harry character that you could like take a picture with. There, like, all the Potterheads were there, and everybody was like just as excited as you were. I remember seeing like people at once they got their copies, like literally sitting in the middle of like the aisles reading their copy. They couldn't even like wait till they got home. They were already like diving into it. And this was like, I mean, we had social media at the time, but it wasn't as like instant, I think, as it is now. So a lot of the people that were there, they genuinely were there because of the event itself and like absorbing the event. It wasn't for like posts or like photo ops. I mean, there were those, but you had to wait till you got home to post them. So I really do think the book releases for these, I hope that eventually generations get to experience things like that. But I mean, there are things that generations before me and generations after me will experience that I'll never know. So, but I did think that that was really cool. And now that I feel like we're getting back into those like love for the books, not Harry Potter, but like all just kind of like, there's another rising of like people just being obsessed with books. I really do hope that there's kind of events like that. I don't think that they're as intense as this was, because I know this was like across the nation. Anyways, this was a journey. It was heartbreaking to have an end. I think my favorite thing about this book was the exploration of the world outside of Hogwarts, because it was really the first book that we weren't at Hogwarts for very long. I mean, at all. Well, we are at the end, but like at the beginning, the books would always follow the structure of we're the Dursleys, we run away in some fashion, we leave Hogwarts. This one they never get to go to Hogwarts. At the beginning, they kind of have this like this understanding that life is going to be completely different from this point forward. It kind of almost feels like a post-apocalyptic feeling, because everyone just feels like the end is here, like everybody is scared. I remember there's one point, there's a lot of points where Molly kind of has breakdowns throughout the series, because the older characters in this book, you know, they remember kind of what it was like when Voldemort was in power, and how destructive it was, and how terrifying it was, and they remember losing friends, and you really felt that, so that by the time you get to this book, I think a big part of it just felt like the world was ending, and everything was just falling apart, and that's kind of why I liked that they didn't follow the typical structure, that they had to kind of venture off and, I don't know, like be adults in a way, and I found that really a good, one of my favorite parts of the book. I did appreciate the end of this. I did appreciate that, you know, I did appreciate that we are reconnected. As far as Snape goes, it took a long time, like near the end, but I did appreciate that she brought him back, and gave him like an honorable death. I hated that he died, but I kind of understood why it had to happen. I think in this one, I even felt that Dumbledore was still alive, especially when Harry keeps kind of seeing the mirror, like the mirror piece that he has. Kind of kept seeing, like, Albus's brother, of course, but that kind of kept bringing me that hope too, that like for some reason he wasn't really dead. And I think we all kind of felt that way until when we kind of have that near-death experience with Harry, and it is confirmed that like Dumbledore is not coming back. I think just as a kid reading these, it just felt so kind of, I don't know, it felt kind of like disconnected. As most of us hadn't had a lot of experiences kind of with death or with kind of losing people, so I think this book was really kind of heavy in the sense that like we lose Fred, and we lose so many characters, that by the end of it, Tonks, I remember kind of having to read the fight again and just try to collect as many like losses that happened. It was really emotional. It was a really emotional read. Even now I feel like I'm getting a little emotional kind of thinking about it. I think a lot of people my age kind of are given like a hard time about how we still obsess over these books, but I have to say, speaking as one of those individuals, while Harry Potter doesn't rule my life, obviously I am a fan. I do appreciate that it was a phenomenon, and it was something that connects deeply to my childhood and kind of allows me to revisit things, because it was a mental and emotional exercise reading these books for us, right? It's much like generations before us, like had this over worship of certain books like Alice in Wonderland or Peter Pan or the Chronicles of Narnia, and like there were many books for many different generations that kind of fit shocked that this is still something that's very present and relevant. I still see kids reading these books. So, yeah. My favorite collection. I don't think I will ever buy a replacement set, just because I can't imagine reading these books on fresh pages. I can't imagine not holding the book that I held the first time